Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest and welcome to 18th of April 2025. I'm hoping you're having a good Friday so far. Now for me the day is still fairly young, 10:18 a.m., but we're about 5 hours into my day already because I do wake up fairly early by choice usually. I do prefer the mornings, and I had planned to do a fairly long run this morning, 21.1 kilometers long. And you might be thinking, particularly if you're not a runner, why 21.1 kilometers? Just look up the length of a half marathon. Anyway, so I had planned to do this long run for a few days, and I was thinking this morning as I got into my car, what can I do? What run or what route can I do? Because I have all these different routes, and all these routes I know the distance. So I can actually go for a drive and not decide on a run until I get to a certain point and go, oh, I could do this run because it's so far. So I decided on the drive that I would do this particular route. And unfortunately, I made a slight mistake. And instead of choosing a 21.1 kilometer route, I chose a 25 kilometer route, and I realized about 2 or 3 kilometers into the run. So I could have adjusted my run after that, but I didn't. So what I decided to do was just run for 21.1 kilometers and then walk the rest, which is fine because that walk was along Kedron Brook, which is a nice walk. Anyway, now it was a pretty good run, no complaints from me, did it fairly casually, fairly slowly, which is good because the longer you do, particularly if you're doing long runs that you're not completely used to, it's better to do those runs slowly so your body gets used to those distances. And then what I do is usually increase the distances fairly slowly. So maybe in a couple of weeks, I'll do a 23 kilometer run, then a 25, and then who knows? So I could go up to 50 kilometers, 100 kilometers. I doubt I'll do that. Now, yeah, the run was fairly good apart from one little section. Now, this wasn't the run itself. This was something that has never happened to me before. I had someone who came up to me fairly quickly from behind, because I could not hear him. And then all of a sudden I heard this person running up behind me. So I thought that'd overtake me, naturally enough. And I was running to the west at this point along Kedron Brook. And so I could see their shadow. And they didn't overtake me. They just stayed behind me for about 1.5 kilometers, just stayed behind me. I was getting annoyed. And I tried to tell them I was getting annoyed, not in so much as words, but I looked back, we met eyes, and I thought that was a good indication. I was getting annoyed. You should overtake me. But no, they just stayed behind me. Whenever I did a little swerve, they just stayed in line. If I sped up a little bit, they sped up. If I slowed down, they slowed down. It was really annoying. So I got so fed up that eventually I just took off because I was running so casually that I had a lot in the tank, and I can run a fair bit quicker than I did, and I left them in the dust. After about 500 meters, I looked behind and they were well behind. After about 1.5 kilometers of running, I looked behind, they were nowhere in sight. So I then started to go a little bit slower. Anyway, so that has never happened to me. I don't know what they were thinking. I just wanted to stop and ask them, why are you doing this? It doesn't make any sense. Overtake, because you can run quicker because you came up to me really quickly. Anyway, so that was one of the weirdest things that happened to me on a run. Okay, so as planned, I did ask you to provide me with some non-investing related questions, and you have come through. Now, I did mention that I was going to limit this to only 20 questions, and I haven't actually counted how many questions I'll be answering in today's video. So there could be more than 20. Okay, so let's go back to James Lee, CJ6GG. From my memory, you mentioned you studied economics. Your memory is good. But then you work as a meteorologist. Yes, that is right. However, you also worked in CBA. Yep, that's true. It's interesting to see people jump fields where they are so different. Really interested to hear how your life career story unfold. I'm guessing your first university degree was on economics. Absolutely. By the way, I'm going to have to keep on drinking because I wouldn't say I'm dehydrated. I've taken a fair bit of liquids, but I need a lot of liquids because you do sweat a lot. So I have to rebuild my liquidation levels. No idea. Okay, I think I have gone through this in the past, maybe once or twice. So I would consider myself fairly smart. Not the smartest person on the planet, not the dumbest person on the planet. Fairly smart. I coasted through high school. I didn't get what I could based off my potential, but I would call myself a bit of a slacker in high school. Even when I went to university, the first few years I was a bit of a slacker. I was more interested in partying, doing that sort of thing, extracurricular activities, and I really didn't buckle down to my third year of university, and this was economics, and I got really good grades after that. I had no real desire to further my career in economics. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Absolutely no idea. I've always loved the weather. I knew that, but I wouldn't call myself a scientist either. And I just had no idea. No idea. I was a little bit interested in finance, the stock market, just a little bit interested. And then eventually I did get a job working with the CBA, working in operations. So this was not at a branch or anything like that, doing some simple stuff. Because I did have a degree, CBA was willing to pay a lot of my further education. So I was going to the Securities Institute doing classes there in regards to the stock market, stuff like that. But I really did not like working for Commonwealth Bank. A lot of the managers there were not the best type of managers, that sort of thing. Even the work itself was not that great. But I did have potential to move up in that organisation just because I had that background with a degree in economics. But then after about a year working in CBA, I decided I needed to, what's a good word? I needed to explore the world. Yeah, I needed to explore the world. I didn't want to pigeon myself into a banking sector or working for the CBA. I wanted to see what was out there. Now, the good thing about me is I am a dual citizen with the United States. And I was thinking, what's the first thing I could do? Well, you know what I could do? I could go to the United States and work as a camp counselor. And so I applied to work as a camp counselor, and I got accepted as, no duh. And so I worked as a camp counselor in Massachusetts, the western part of Massachusetts, in the Berkshires, a beautiful area of the world. I hated it. I did not like being a camp counselor. Not my sort of thing, I realised. But thankfully, I was only there for 3 months. But I did meet a few people there. So I met a few Australians, also quite a few English people. And we decided, because there was like 8 of us, we decided to buy 2 cars and travel the United States for the next, I think it was like 4 to 6 weeks. Now, because these were all Australians and English people, they all had visas. They had to leave the country after a certain amount of time. And so they were just slipping off every now and again. And then finally, after about, it was about it would have been 4 to 6 weeks. There was only 2 of us left. And both Australians. So the other guy took his car. So we both chose a car. He took his car, and I think he went to Mexico doing heaps of stuff. I have no idea. And then at this point in time, there was a hurricane moving. Well, we were in Los Angeles, and there was a hurricane moving towards New Orleans. Hurricane George with an S. Hurricane George with an S. So you can actually see for yourself what year this was. Hurricane George with an S, 1998. And I drove from LA to New Orleans in, was it 2 days? About 2 days. I drove from El Paso to New Orleans in 1 day. Do you know how long that is? That is driving 1,087 miles. 1,600 kilometers I drove in 1 day. I still remember going through Houston in a violent thunderstorm. So I left El Paso. It would have been like 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I was really poor. I did not have any money, so I was just sleeping in the car. And I got to New Orleans about 2 a.m. in the morning. And what I distinctly remember about driving into New Orleans is everyone was leaving. So one side of the highway was just full of cars or traffic leaving, and I was the only person going in. And I just thought at that point, all those disaster movies where everyone is just driving on one side of the road, but there's no one on the other side? You always think, why not just drive on the other side as well? You can't do that. because you need that part of the road clear for emergency vehicles. Yes, you need that part of the road clear for emergency vehicles. Now, I had no idea at the time that New Orleans was probably the worst place to be in a hurricane because it's underground. It's not underground, but it's below sea level. And I was walking around New Orleans. This was like a day before the hurricane was due to hit, and just going, why is there a levee and why are the boats taller? Like you can see the sort of the bases of the boats taller than where you are, and why are all the graveyards, everything's above ground? Yeah, it's because it's the worst place to be in a hurricane because it's below sea level. So I found, and at this point in time, I had no cash, and I actually did have to ask my parents for some money because I had like maybe $10. But I actually found a parking lot that was like 5 stories high, and I went to park there, and the owners came out and said, "You can't park here." And I said, "Well, there's nowhere else to go." And they said, "Well, you can stay here in case the flooding's really bad." And we saw with Katrina that, again, New Orleans is not the place to be. So if this was a direct hit on New Orleans, it would have been terrible for me. I would have learned a valuable lesson, and I would have had to be saved. But thankfully, the hurricane itself just veered off to the east of New Orleans. It veered off to the east of New Orleans. I wonder if there's a map here. Yeah, it just veered off. So New Orleans, it was heading straight for New Orleans, and it just veered off, hit Mobile, Alabama instead. And the good thing is, being on the eastern side of a hurricane is the best side. So the worst conditions will be on the east side, not the west side. So thankfully, New Orleans was mostly spared. And then no petrol stations were open, and I got a tow because I ran out of petrol, and I got a tow from someone to a petrol station, and the petrol station was closed, so I had to just wait there for the petrol station to open. Anyway, and that's when I realised to myself, maybe meteorology is for me. If I'm willing to do this sort of thing, if this is a passion, maybe I should be studying meteorology. And at that point in time, my sister was living in New Jersey, so I stayed with my sister and her husband for 3 to 4 months. I got a job at Blockbuster Video. Yes, Blockbuster Video. Worked there for 3 to 4 months on minimal wage, so like $4 an hour. Yes, $4 an hour. I did the SATs. So you need the SATs to go into university there. I got 1,520. Still remember that, 1,520, which is a pretty good score. So that's the old days, 1,520 SAT out of 1,600. I think it's out of 2,400 now. So a very strong score, 99th percentile of the new. Now, I did study for that, by the way. Anyway, so based off my SAT scores, I wouldn't say the shoes of the litter, but I decided on a school called SUNY Brockport, just to the east of Rochester, and I started that degree in January of 1999. Finished that degree, so this was an undergraduate degree in meteorology. Finished that degree in the summer of 2001, summer their time, and then I also did the what's it called? GRE, I think. GRE score. I forget what it's called, graduate record examination. So I go to graduate school, you need to do the GRE. I got a really good score on that one. I can't remember what I got. And the reason I can't remember what I got is because I got accepted to all these universities. In fact, some universities recruited me. So I got some letters from these universities I had no intention going to saying, "Hey, why don't you come here because of my GRE scores?" And I still remember the day I spoke to someone at Oklahoma, because that's where I wanted to go. And they said, I worked really hard at SUNY Rockport to get really good grades because I thought your grades in an undergraduate degree were the most important thing. And then I found out, no, they don't really care about that. They focus mostly on the GRE. And that sort of peeved me off a little bit because I worked hard and sure, I got a really good GRE score, but I'm really good at doing those exams. And I thought it was just based off my work I did. And that sort of turned me off a little bit. So my intentions were to actually go and get my PhD, but that turned me off. And in the end, I decided not to go for my PhD. And I think that's good because I realized after a while that I do not have the personality to do a PhD because I cannot focus on the one thing for a long time. And if you're doing a PhD, you need to be able to focus on the one thing for a long time. But fortunately, I was able to do all these other great stuff after I realized I'm not going to go for my PhD. I did a research project with the FAA and NCAR UCAR in Juneau, Alaska, studying turbulence. That was amazing. I did that for about 4 to 5 months. And I did these other great stuff. I interned at a company called Williams Energy. They had the largest trading floor in the United States west of Chicago, and this was the time during or just after Enron, so very turbulent time in this sector. Williams is a publicly listed company. Share price of Williams went from $35 to less than $1 when I was working there, and everyone got fired. That's when I realized, because the spin the company gave me when I started working there or interning there was, we're a family. We're lucky we treat each other like a family. And I was like, no, you don't. And some people actually not yelled at me, but they, weren't mean, but they said, yeah, we're a family. Yeah. I was like, no, you're not. I said, yes, we are. And most of the people were fired. Yeah. And I was thinking, if you're truly a family, you just don't fire people. You don't fire people out of your family. And that's when I realized don't always listen to the spin from management. Anyway, so in fact, we can have a look at the Williams chart. And I was thinking at that point in time, when the share price got below $1, if I had a lot of money, or just a little bit of money, I would have bought so many shares in Williams at that point in time. And I just so wish I did that. So this is let's have a look at the weekly chart for Williams. So this was this would have been in the summer of 2002. Yeah, look at that. There it is. There's the massive drop. Yep, there's the massive drop. Went from $35 all the way, actually, all the way down to less than $1. So 89 cents. And look at the recovery. Went back up to 30. Oh, geez. Can't believe it. And look, since then, it's been all over the place. Share price now is 58.62. Anyway, so that was a really interesting time. So then I got my degree, and I had no idea what I was going to do. And then I realized at one point, I really liked forecasting. I really liked the forecasting. I was very well suited to forecasting. One of the reasons I liked forecasting is because I am not well suited to 9 to 5, 5 days a week work. I hate that. Absolutely hate it. I did try it for a little period of time. Found work in Tokyo, a company called, what are they called now? Weather News. They used to be called something shipping. This was forecasting, aviation, that sort of stuff. But the reason I didn't like working there is, again, it was more 9 to 5, even like 8-hour shifts. I don't like 8-hour shifts. I prefer working at least 10 to 12 hours in a shift so you can have more days off. And then I said I can't last here for much longer because just the culture. The working culture for me, there was, what's the word? Was difficult. I was like a non-Japanese person, and the Japanese workers wanted me to talk to the management in regards to working rights, because I was not expected to work more than 8 hours a day, even though the Japanese workers were rostered 8 hours a day. They were expected to work more than 8 hours, but because I was non-Japanese, I did not have those expectations. So I worked the normal working week, but most of the Japanese workers could work 16 hours a day, even though they were paid 8 hours. And they wanted change. And I said, this is not my fight. This is your fight. Because of that, I decided to come back to Australia, and I got accepted to the Bureau of Meteorology. And I've been with the Bureau for 18 years. I have no desire to leave at this point in time, even though I'm not the biggest fan of management. Anyway, so that was much longer than I anticipated to be. So, and by the way, you mentioned here, interesting to see people jump fields where they are so different. I could actually connect meteorology and economics. In fact, one of the reasons why I was working at an energy company, so they deal with gas and other forms of energy, electricity, that sort of thing. One of the reasons you can connect the two is because of futures. So there's a lot of futures when it comes to gas, agricultural products that can move on weather-related stuff. Yes, weather-related stuff. For instance, just before I started working or interning at the energy company, all the people I was working with, and they were all meteorologists, got a $100,000 bonus because they correctly predicted the movement of gas prices, not on the back of what was going to happen with the weather, but on the back of the forecasts, the official winter forecasts from the government. And that's how prices can move for gases. So if the official forecast is for a warmer than average winter, gas prices will actually go down. If the forecast is for a colder than average winter, the gas prices will go up because there'll be greater demand. So you can see the prices of gas move up and down just based off the official forecast. So a way to look at it is these forecasters were trying to forecast the official forecast. So it's really good to know who is doing the official forecast. If you know they're conservative or you know what they look at, that sort of thing can be very helpful. And they made the right call. They said the official forecast was going to be, I forget what it was, but it was going to be a warmer than normal winter, and that was spot on, and the price of gas moved, and they made a lot of money. They were still fired not that long after. Anyway, so there is still a big connection between economics and meteorology, and you find connections in all these different fields that might seem like they are so different. So thank you for that, James Lee. Now on to Brian Tony. Oh, what age did you lose your virginity? Was it a girlfriend, one night stand, escort, cousin? I don't know how to answer this. There are some things I think are good to remain in the private spectrum, I suppose. I won't tell you exactly what age I did lose my virginity. It wasn't an unusual age. Actually, wait there. Why do you think I'm still not a virgin? Why are you assuming I have lost my virginity? There are some people out there who would be my age who are still virgins. I don't think there'll be a lot, but you are making an assumption. But anyway, you made the right assumption. Anyway, what age? I won't say. I'll leave that to me, but I will say this. It was not an unusual age. So it wasn't too early, wasn't too late, sort of a typical age. Was it a girlfriend, one night stand, escort, or cousin? None of those, which is interesting. By the way, you say cousin, you're probably joking about that, but it wasn't that long ago. That was very normal for cousins to marry each other. In fact, Albert Einstein married his first cousin. Charles Darwin married his first cousin. And there's other people I won't mention married the first cousin, including people related to me. My grandparents were cousins. This was way back in the 1920s or so. Or maybe it was later than that. Famous people who married cousins. Famous people who married cousins. Charles Darwin, H.G. Wells, Albert Einstein, Rudy Giuliani, Kevin Bacon. I don't think Edgar Allan Poe, Franklin Roosevelt. I'm not sure some of these. List of coupled cousins. Yeah, I mean, it was not unusual. So I know that was sort of a joke, but none of those. It wasn't a girlfriend, was not a one-night stand, was not an escort, and not a cousin. I don't regret when I did, or what the age I did, or who I did it with. In fact, it was a friend, and we're still friends. That's all I'm going to say. So no regrets at all about what happened. Absolutely perfect. Who I did it with, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And I won't say what age, but it was definitely not. I was definitely not really young, so I'm going to say it was definitely not younger than 17 and not older than 21. So in that 17 to 21 range. That's all I'm going to say. And the rest I'll keep for myself. Okay, Sensei says, this is sort of an investing question. I'll answer this one, but it's more of an investing question. How much is your real net worth currently, amount of cash you can put on the table within 2 or 3 weeks? Notice if you sell all your shares, gold, silver, and other assets, but excluding house you live in, own. Okay, so I do know my net worth Overall, it's 1.6 million. So that includes the house. Okay, so yeah, I do keep track of that. So at the moment in time, I do have a fair bit of cash just because I need a bit of liquidity because of the building of the house. I need that cash because I'm going to get a lot of cash when the current house I'm living in is settled. But some of that cash is going to go to paying my parents who gave me a bit of cash to settle the land. It's just all complicated. So I need a bit of cash when we start building because you need a bit of cash on and ongoing. So at this point in time, I would say it's about, if I would sell everything, I would have about, it wouldn't actually, it's a little bit lower than 800,000. Yeah, a little bit lower than 800,000. I'd say it's about 700,000. Okay, Trader Hooper, I know you like hiking and running, but my question is, have you ever tried sailing or diving? I was thinking driving. Yes, I've tried driving. In fact, I do that a lot of the days of my life. I know you like hiking and running, but my question is, have you ever tried sailing? I have sailed a little bit, like a two-person dinghy. No big ships, nothing like that. So, yes, so that's a no, except a little dinghy. And diving, I've never, not scuba diving, snorkeling, but no scuba diving. Am I keen? I think maybe one day, yeah. I think one day. I watched a movie the other day. It was an interesting movie. What was it called? It had Woody Harrelson in it. It was a true story about divers. What was it called? How are Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson related? Oh, okay. It was about divers. Just take your time, Wikipedia. Where's his filmography? Here it is, filmography. It was very recent. It was a new movie. Oh, Last Breath. The feature film remake of the 2019 documentary follows a group of deep sea divers who race to rescue a stranded teammate after an accident. Now, why I watched this was because of a 1984 Norwegian incident where a few divers were, I think it was 1984 diving incident, where a few divers were, the Byford Dolphin, yeah, where a few divers were in, under the water and they got liquefied because of an accident. 1983, I was 1 year off, 1983. Explosive decompression. Yeah, so I don't know if I've ever could do that. So this is a really interesting story. And the movie was actually really good. I like the movie. And this what was really interesting about this particular incident, that this particular fellow was without oxygen for 30 minutes and he still survived. So researchers don't know, scientists don't know why. They think it could be pressure and temperature, but he was without oxygen, wasn't breathing for 30 minutes, and they brought him back. So a really interesting story. So good movie. Didn't mind the movie at all. Critical response, it has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Anyway, so maybe one day I'll do some diving. HBK Fortis, Kneppy, I've been wondering, how did you end up in USA to study in the past? I think it's a great thing to study abroad when growing up and wish I had. So I sort of have answered this, haven't I? And the fortunate thing for me is I do have American citizenship. Yes, I do have American citizenship. So when I do travel to America, a very funny story about this. So in 2017, me and my partner, ex-partner, were doing this 2-month holiday through Western United States and Canada. And we're going from Canada into United States. This was just south of Vancouver, so north of Seattle. And we come up. I had planned the trip, so I knew exactly where we're heading for that night, and my ex-partner had no idea. And so they asked us for our passports, so they saw mine, and the amount of respect they gave me was exemplary. It was welcome back to United States, sir. And the amount of disrespect they gave to my ex-partner, the amount of questions she got, even though we're in the same car, it was like, why, where are you going tonight? What are you doing here? Do you have any plans? It was all these questions. And she did not know where we were staying that night. And I knew the town, and they wanted to hear from her. So I could not say anything. And they actually took us inside to question us further. And they were much better inside, I'll give you that. In fact, we did joke because I had planned to stay at a place called, it was spelled Sequim. That's it, Sequim. So what I had planned to do is, where it is. So what I planned to do was, there's Vancouver. I'd planned to catch a ferry. I wanted to catch a ferry from, I think it was here, somewhere here, through to this other place somewhere. I just wanted to catch a ferry. And then I wanted to stay at a place called, or spelled Sequim. So I was in this little, I don't know what to call it, this little room with this other guy. Just, he was asking us some questions, very simple questions. And he just asked where we're staying tonight or that night. And I just said Sequim, because Sequim. And he just laughed and went, yeah, the E is silent. I went, what? Yeah, it's pronounced Sequim. The E is silent. And yeah, so I'll never forget that. Sequim. There you go. Anyway, so that was really interesting. And yeah, so the whole point of me saying that story is it's very good to have two passports, because if I'm not going to the United States, I will. If I'm going to the United States, I'll show my American passport. But if I'm going elsewhere in the world, I will more than likely show my Australian passport, unless it's some places which have a better respect or higher respect for the United States. But those places these days are few and far in between. Anyway, so hopefully I have made that clear, why I ended up in the United States. Just one of the reasons is because that was my first stop, the first stop on my worldwide trip, and I just stayed there for 8 years. Karen Xing, do you think the war between China and China will break out soon? Is there a war? You're making that sound like it's definitive. There is a war. A war between Taiwan and China will break out soon. No. I'm going to say no. I'm being optimistic, maybe not optimistic, but maybe realistic, rational. I think it won't be good for anyone. I think China knows this. I don't think there's going to be any war breaking out soon. I'm going to say no. The other question is, what would you define soon as? 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, 5 years? Now, if you consider the age of the universe, soon could be in the next 5 million years, and that will still be soon in relationship to this age of the universe. So soon, yeah, I'd say no. Oh, Luxie says or asks, what is your personal relationship with spirituality, or otherwise put, your view on metaphysics? Do you ascribe existence from a purely scientific, mechanistic perspective, or would you classify your belief system as spiritual, whatever that may look like? Okay. And VBE also, this is a question I wanted to ask Kneppy, but you got in and asked that question first. Metaphysics is right up my alley. Okay, so one of the things I'll say here is, this wave of curiosity has sort of surged over me the last, month or so. And I think the reason behind this is because I'm on annual leave. And when I say annual leave, I'm taking 1 year leave. And I have all this time. And I'm just becoming curious about everything. I've just been Googling everything. And I've just been asking more and more questions. And not the worst thing, but the really interesting thing about asking questions is the more you understand about something, the more you realize the less you know about something. For instance, I was looking up Marie Curie. Her name's actually Maria Curie. She's Polish. And so I was just looking into her life, and there was all these other questions I had. all these other questions I had. And I just realized I know so little about the world, about history, about science, about everything. Like, she's in radioactivity. I know nothing about radioactivity, that sort of thing. There's so little I know about the world. And I believe there's so little we humans know about the world, about the universe. So little. Like, for instance, Big Bang, good chance that happened. But what was before the Big Bang? How big is the universe? There's so many things we just don't know. And I have no doubt in, say, 1,000 years' time, if humans still existing, maybe they're not, they will look back at us and they would think we were so primitive. I think exactly what we do if you look back 1,000 years. Humans back 1,000 years were so primitive. They just did not know anything. People believe that, God's caused the lightning. And that was one of the problems, not problems, but what we didn't understand, so lightning, stars. There was a really good, so Isaac Newton, I think a lot of experts would say he's the most brilliant mind in history. And he had some queries, and I remember reading this or hearing about this quite a while ago, and one of his queries was, I wonder if all these little lights in the sky are far distant things like the sun. And we think about that now and go, yeah, no duh, but back then we didn't think that sort of thing. We had this different view of the universe, the world. We don't completely understand it. So there's a lot of things we don't understand at this point in time. Now, what is my personal relationship with spirituality? I wouldn't say I do have any. And I think the main reason behind that is because I think the way I look at it is a lot of people, worship gods and that sort of thing. And I wouldn't say I think we should be, I wouldn't say worshipping, but we should be acknowledging the sun. Because without the sun, we would not be here. Just think about it. If the sun was stolen by aliens, and I have this little joke that I have two big fears in the world. I have two big fears in my life. The first fear is our sun is stolen by an advanced civilization or just disappears. And my second fear is animals become highly intelligent. And if animals, say elephants, rhinos, dogs, cats, bees, ants, they all become highly intelligent, we're screwed. I say that as a joke because that's never going to happen. Even the sun disappearing were never going to happen. But just imagine if the sun disappeared. We're screwed. Life would cease to exist fairly quickly. We are so reliant on the sun, and I can definitely understand why many past cultures worship the sun, because we are so reliant on it. So I would not describe myself as spiritual. However, in saying that, I'll tell you why I love climbing mountains. Okay, so in my opinion, the whole point of art is to evoke emotion. So you go to the museum, you see a piece of art, you go, oh, the tingles on my arm. Or you listen to a piece of music and it just evokes this emotion. You watch a horror movie and it evokes fear and terror. And I've heard people say, I hated this. This was a horrible movie because it made me so scared. No, that's not a horrible movie. That's actually a great movie because it evoked this emotion. And so the whole point of art is to evoke emotion. Now, personally for me, the best way to evoke emotion probably would be music. I love particularly music that can evoke emotion in movie or films. There's a reason we hear music, not all movies. In fact, one of the best movies of all time, No Country for Old Men, had no score, which was brilliant, brilliant. But you'll hear a lot of music, a lot of a score in a film or a TV series that will help evoke emotion, will tell you what emotion that needs to be evoked, because that's the whole point. Whole point of music, of movies, of TV shows, of art is to evoke emotion. So what am I talking about when it comes to hiking? Okay, and when it comes to hiking up mountains. So a lot of times when I get to a top of a mountain and I can see a view, I consider that to be nature's art. And sometimes it just blows my mind what I can look at. What I'm seeing. In fact, you can see behind me right here. This is a view from Clouds Bend in Yosemite. Sometimes it's just breathtaking, and that evokes so much emotion in me. Just being in, and a lot of times I'll be. There was a hike in Yellowstone. So Yellowstone is really busy. It's closed for a lot of the year because it's high up and they get a lot of snow. But there is a hike in Yellowstone called Avalanche Peak. Avalanche Peak Trail. In fact, yep, this is it. So it's not a very long hike, and you go to Yellowstone. So I went to Yellowstone. We went to Yellowstone in late August 2027. This was just after a solar eclipse. Whole reason I went at that point in time, and this is an interesting story. So about a year and a half prior to when I went over to the United States, I just mentioned to someone at work that I was going to the United States at this point, and the person said, "You do know there's a total solar eclipse going through the United States in August 2017. I think it was August the 21st, I think, something like that." And I was like, "What? Okay." Now, I had no massive desire to see a total solar eclipse, but if it was happening around the same time, I thought I can sort of put that into my plans, which I did. And I would say that a total solar eclipse blew my mind. It only happened for like 4 minutes, but it was one of the most amazing experiences. And I could definitely understand why people are drawn to total solar eclipse. I've heard some people say, no, they're not worth it. But I'm pretty sure they did not experience a total solar eclipse. The way I would explain it was like a 360 sunset or sunrise. So there was red all around the horizon. I was a little bit concerned about cloud because it happened at about midday, if I remember correctly. So I was in western Nebraska. It happened about midday, and I was concerned about a bit of cloud. But because we started to see the solar eclipse happening, we started to feel it becoming a little bit cooler because you get less radiation from the sun. So radiation warms up the ground, and the sun warms up the ground, and the ground radiates. So the sun actually doesn't cause the heating. It's actually the ground that causes the heating. So if you get less sunshine on the ground, you get less warming. And the reason you get clouds is because you get these little pockets of warm air, these thermals, and they rise, causing clouds. And once we started to feel it getting a little bit cooler, the clouds just went away. And then after a while, this is not at the total solar eclipse. This was just before it. Just before the total solar eclipse, it starts getting darker. And then you start hearing crickets and these other insects who you usually only hear just before dusk or dawn and during the night. It was so weird, absolutely weird. No cloud in the skies at this point, starting to get cooler, starting to hear these insects. And then all of a sudden you had this total solar eclipse. Where we were in Nebraska, I decided to go to this part of Nebraska because of the climate, best chance of clear skies. And I was thinking this would be one of the most remote parts to be. So I decided to go. Where is it? Here it is. So I decided to go somewhere along this route, now 29. And I thought, there'd be hardly anyone there. It was just packed. On either side of the road, there was people stopped from all around the world. Yes, all around the world. We had parties there. Not parties, yeah, I suppose parties. Parties there from Denmark, Europe, South America. It was just amazing. And then, the total solar eclipse happened over a 4-minute period. Yet it was one of the most fantastic 4-minute periods of my life. And I can definitely see why people chase these. People chase them. People know exactly when they're going to happen. And the great thing is, as soon as this happened, I went, ooh, what's the next total solar eclipse? But we have 2 amazing solar eclipses in Australia in the next 10 or so years. 2028, and there's one in 2030 something. So this one is going to be amazing. I think it's this one. Yes, it's this one. 22nd July 2028. It goes straight over the Sydney CBD. I'm not joking. It goes straight over the CBD. There's another one, I think it's 2036, just south of Brisbane. So this one, oh, it's like 3 years away. It's not that far away. Anyway, that's Nebraska. Anyway, I'm still talking about this. So this avalanche peak, like Yellowstone was packed. It is packed this time of year, late August, absolutely packed, full of people. But one of the things I did discover is if you go on a hike fairly early in the morning, you're less likely to see people. And we went on this hike. We stayed at this other place just outside of the park. What was it called? Custer? What was it called? And it took maybe 30 minutes to drive here. And we do have to be careful because bears, grizzly bears, this was a grizzly bear known area. It's a very steep hike. And you had amazing views. Me and my partner were the only people up here. No one was hiking this because it's just too hard. And that's one thing I did realize. A lot of people I wouldn't say too lazy, but too unfit. They wouldn't do this sort of hike. But you could just see this view. This is from the National Park Service. It was an amazing 360 view, avalanche peak. I want to do this hike again because it is a strenuous hike, but it's worth it. And just when you're on top of these mountains and you've got these beautiful views, it's just, it is stunning. So what's the whole point? So in a way that is sort of a spirituality, getting in tune with nature, that sort of thing. But I do believe, I wouldn't call myself spiritual. That's the only way I am. But I do think it is dangerous to be purely scientific because there's so much we don't know. And because we don't know a lot of stuff, we might rule out something that might be real that could be true. Now, I don't believe in ghosts. I'm not a big religious person. I'm not saying there is no God. I'm not saying there is no heaven, no afterlife, that sort of thing. But I would like some sort of evidence or that sort of thing. But my thought is, hey, we don't know, it doesn't exist. I mean, there is a chance we're in a simulation right now. And there is a chance that all your memories are not real, that this simulation we're in only started 10 minutes ago. There is that possibility. In fact, I do know some scientists who believe that's an almost certainty. So there's a lot of stuff we just don't know, and to discredit anything at this point would be silly. So, yeah, anything. There could be gods, there may not be, there may be multiple gods. The God you believe in, or other people believe in, like the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish God, they all believe the same God, which is weird that they all have these fights with each other. They all believe the same God. Maybe that's not the real God. Maybe there's another God out there who's real, and who knows? No idea. Anyway, so hopefully I've answered that question to your satisfaction, Luxie. Kneppy, talk about something that is on your bucket list of things to do or experience. I have no bucket lists. Should I have a bucket list? Yep, I have no bucket list. I have zero bucket list at this point in time. Maybe I should develop a bucket list. What is something I really, really want to do? What is something I really, really want to do? Really, really want to do. I do want to go to Norway. Because there's and the Swiss Alps again. I've been to Switzerland, but that was in the winter. So I like to do a lot of hiking in the Swiss Alps during the summer. Not only the Swiss Alps, the French Alps, the Italian Alps, that sort of thing. I'd love to go to Patagonia, but I do not have a bucket list, and more than likely I'll do those things, but I don't have a bucket list. And yeah, there's nothing. I like to see some of my sporting teams to win a premiership, or win something. I'll be honest with you, I have not had a sporting team win since 1986. I'm not including like the Australian cricket team or anything like that. So I'll tell you all the teams I support. So Parramatta Eels in the NRL, Buffalo Bills in the NFL, Buffalo Sabres in the NHL, Oklahoma City Thunder could do it in the NBA. I I don't really follow any other teams, any other sport. Oh, Oklahoma Sooners in every sport they have in, because I went to University of Oklahoma. So it's one really interesting thing about the different university cultures in Australia versus over there. So there's this instilled university pride they build over there through sports. And that's why a lot of universities over there have massive endowments, because I went to University of Newcastle here, got a degree, went to University of, SUNY Brockport and University of Oklahoma, and my pride in those universities are much stronger than the University of Newcastle. And I think that revolves around sports. So I do follow the University of Oklahoma in all their sportings. And the funny thing is they won the national championship the year before I got there. And they've been, and I will also say this, my teams have been in the national championship or the grand final since I've been following them about 10 times, 0 victories. So I'm 0-10. 0-10. It's ridiculous. Always a little bit short. Anyway, so that's a great thing about supporting a team. And when finally a team does win, which could be the Oklahoma City Thunder this year, it's going to be amazing. And I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but no bucket list of things to do. Should I have a bucket list? Does everyone have a bucket list? I don't. The Ninja Pug 2374, favorite place you have visited in the world and place you like to visit one day. Well, I've sort of answered that in the last video. Thanks, Kneppy, for all the videos. Okay, my favorite place in the world is easy. It's Western United States and Canada, because I love mountains. And one of the reasons I love that part of the world and say this is distinct from other mountainous areas is because the changes you see over a fairly short period or short distance is extreme. And this is a really good story from my last trip. So we're in San Francisco, my last trip. So I wanted to go and do this hike near Lake Tahoe called Mount Talak. Beautiful views over Lake Tahoe, that sort of thing. I'm not a big city person, but I thought having a walk around, explore of San Francisco would be good for my ex-partner. It was good. It was fine. She also likes wine, so we went to Napa and went to some wine places. I'm not a big fan of wine, but she bought some wine and that sort of thing. Anyway, so I was driving from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe. This was on the last day of summer. So we're talking about September, was that 22 or something? So I had all the forecasts. And it was really interesting. The forecast said there might be some snow flurries about the higher tops of is it Sierra Nevadas at that point? I forget. And I was thinking, that could be exciting. The other thing I should mention is there were a lot of fires at this point in time. So one of the worst things about this trip was the amount of fires, and smoke was horrible. When we were at Whistler, I stayed one night at Whistler. The smoke was so bad that you could actually look at the sun with naked eyes because it was just a red ball because the smoke was so bad. And so we had a really good day at Mount Rainier because there was a weather system came through which blew all the smoke out. So an absolutely gorgeous hike at Mount Rainier, beautiful hike, one of the best hikes in the world without doubt. Anyway, so we're driving, and to drive, I like not to drive on the major roads. I like to drive on little roads, and we're driving on this one highway, not a highway, it was a small road, and we got to this there was no internet access, which is really weird, and we get to this little town, and then we see this sign saying the road is closed ahead. I was like, why? Why is a road closed ahead? Is it fires? Is it smoke? And so I had to stop at this little town, this little mall, to get internet access, and it was closed because of snow. It was closed because of snow. I was like, ooh, that's exciting. So I had to find this other route. It took us a little bit of time to find this other road. So we started to go up and up. So in the car, you have this, the temperature gauge. You can see what the temperature is outside. So snow doesn't start falling when it's 32 degrees. It starts falling at a higher temperature. So I knew as soon as we started to see the temperature drop below about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just below 5 degrees Celsius, that was a time you might start seeing snow falling. And at that point in time, as we're going higher and higher, maybe 8,000, 9,000 feet in elevation, it was starting to get grayer and grayer and grayer. And then we started to see flurries fall. It was so exciting seeing flurries fall. This was exciting for my ex-partner. Doesn't usually. I lived in snow places in the past, But this was very exciting. We had to stop, take photos. This is exciting. But as we're going higher and higher, we started to see the snow flurries become a little bit heavier and a little bit heavier. And when you start to see the snow accumulating on the road, that can be a concerning sign as you keep on going higher and higher. And then eventually the snow starts accumulating on the road and it can become dangerous. So I started to go slower. I do have a lot of experience driving on snowy roads. I've driven in blizzards before where you have visibility of like 5 centimeters in lake effect snow. So I do have experience driving in snow. I've had experience driving over black ice, which is a horrible experience. So we started to see not much traffic either, going fairly slow. And at this point in time, the snow was getting quite thick on the roads. And then we get to a point where we had to come stop. There was a few cars in front of us, and there was also a police car on the side. And what happened was a bike had crashed. Yeah, a cyclist, not a motorcyclist, had crashed, fallen over, and more likely because of the snow. So that was when it became really real. And that's when I went, well, I've got to focus on this. This is awesome, but got to focus on driving. This is really important. I'm shocked at that point they had not closed the road because they were not expecting this. Remember, the forecast was for a few flurries. This was not a few flurries. This was much higher snowfall than expected. And finally, we get to the top. This point where the only car on the road, I think everyone else turned back or whatever. And at the top, there was probably about 4 or 5 inches of snow. And then as we started going down towards Lake Tahoe, beautiful, beautiful. One of the reasons I love snow, particularly fresh snow, is it just makes everything so beautiful. In fact, falling snow is one of the most beautiful sounds in the world. It's one of my favorite sounds in the world, falling snow. Anyway, so we get to Lake Tahoe, not much snow at that point. We check into the motel, and then we go to eat somewhere, and then snow started falling in Lake Tahoe on the last day of summer. Last day of summer, we went for a hike the next day in snow. It wasn't snowing, but there was a nice snowpack. They had 8 inches of snow on the peaks, maybe even more than that. So there was a nice pack of snow when we climbed Mount Talek. A beautiful, by the way, Mount Talek. Yeah, I'll show you this one. Mount Talek. I'm going to do this hike again because I want to do it without snow. Mount Talek. I'll see if there's a photo. No, it's not that one. Mount Talek. Yeah, this is the sort of view from Mount Talek. Absolutely stunning views. Absolutely amazing views from Mount Talek. No, go back. Mount Talek views. Yeah, absolutely stunning views of Mount Talek, or of Lake Tahoe. Anyway, so I want to do this hike again. It's not a very long hike. It's a pretty good hike, strenuous hike again. And then the next day, we did a hike in Western Yosemite. That was the Cloud Rests hike. You can see here, you can see there's not a snow, still a bit of snow. My ex-partner hated that hike because he had to hike through snow. The end result was pretty good. So this is a case of does the ends justify the means? For me, yes, maybe not for her, but this was, again, a really cold, by the way, it was like -5 when we started the hike, Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Anyway, so a lot of snow. The whole point of this point of the video, what I'm talking about. So a lot of snow, last day of summer. 2 days later, we're in Death Valley, not far away, and the temperature was 45 degrees Celsius. And the distance between Death Valley and here was not far. And there was that sort of extreme geography, I don't know what you call it, which makes me love Western United States because you can just do so much stuff. There's just so much to do. But I do love mountains, and you got a lot of mountains. You got Rockies in Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, into is it Alberta and British Columbia? Yeah, so a lot of mountainous. And then in California, you have the Cascades, Sierra Nevadas. And I'm discovering there's so many hikes I have not done, I didn't even know existed. I've gone through all trails, which is a great site, and some of these hikes I'm so keen on doing. So this is the reason why I'm going back there, just because I have not completed doing all these hikes I want to do. So that's my favorite place in the world. I could imagine there's other places in the world that I might like just as much, if not more, but I want to fully explore that area. So I'm spending 2 months in that area doing all these hikes I want to do. And a place I'd like to visit. So there's many places I'd like to visit, and they all involve mountains. So I have not been to the South Island in New Zealand. I want to do heaps of hikes there. I've already talked about Patagonia in Argentina. There's all these nice hikes I want to do there. Talking about Europe, the Alps, Norway. So I wouldn't mind maybe, I have no intention, I have no desire to do Mount Everest. For me, that is not the sort of hike I want to do. Most of the hikes I like to do are just one-day hikes, so daily hikes. So for me, the longest hike I will do is 40 kilometers in a day. I'll do that, no problem. So that's the sort of hikes I do. One of the reasons behind that is because I can do more without a big pack on my back. Anyway, for me, it's all about mountains. And the other thing I should mention here is I'm not the sort of person, when it comes to holidays, where I go to one spot and that's it. So people just go to the one spot for their 1 week holiday and that's it. I need to be moving around. I need to have a car and to be traveling. I don't want to spend my holiday in the one spot. Blacktop Images says, what's your vision for retirement? Not to be working. To be comfortable, to enjoy life, to not to be worrying about money. Now, to be honest, I don't worry about money now, but one of the reasons why I have not retired now, I almost could. One of the reasons is I don't want to have any concern about money. So working part-time is really good for me because that means I'm bringing in some money and I don't have to worry about it. And I don't mind working 4 days in 18. So that's my vision for retirement. I don't need heaps of money. I don't need like $5 million or anything like that. There's no point. No point dying with heaps of money. So for me, it's all about being comfortable and doing stuff, like doing these holidays until I get to the age where I just can't do that anymore. Vegemite 8 says, can you talk about SMSF? Oh, no, I do not have an SMSF. Why you set it up and how you set it up and what things we need to watch out for. So this is sort of investing related question. So I don't have an SMSF. I have Net Wealth. I think it's called Super Accelerator. Am I right or am I wrong? It's something like this. So it's very close to a SMSF, but you don't have to have all the worries and hassle of doing all the accounting or whatever you want to do or whatever you need to do. So with this one, I think it's this one. If it's not, it might be another one. I can invest in many companies around the world. Almost every company on the ASX and many companies around the world, not an absolutely every company around the world, but different exchanges. And this probably is a step towards an SMSF. So I do not have an SMSF just yet. This was sort of the next step in that direction. Anyway, so yeah, don't have it up. Don't have it just yet. So if you want more control over what you invest in when it comes to your super, this sort of option is for you. So I put all my high quality companies into my net wealth super, and I can trade these companies. I don't have to rely on my super people to decide what companies they buy and sell. So it's a really good option if you want more control over your investments, which I believe your super is. And personally, life-wise, wondering why you decided not to marry and not to have kids. What else? Okay. Why did I decide not to marry? Why? My question is, why do you have to marry? What's the point in marrying? People say, wow, it's you declaring a love for the other person, but is it? I just don't see any point to marry. For me, I just don't see any point. It's not like my parents divorced or anything. They're still together. I know a few parents whose parents did divorce. I just don't see the point. I just don't see the point of marrying. I think a lot of people marry just because they have a good wedding. I don't know. It's weird. For me, that's a really bad use of money, is having a wedding. Honestly, I just don't see the point of marrying. Having kids is a different thing. I do get disappointed with people who say you need to have kids, or you're not a man unless you have kids. I think that's really wrong. For me, it was the ex-partner didn't want to have kids, and that was fine with me. I'm not the sort of person who wanted kids, or not the sort of person who absolutely wanted kids, or not the sort of person who absolutely didn't want kids. I just let life I just let life lead me down a path, and that was fine with me. So if my ex-partner really, really wanted kids, I would have been fine with that. But she didn't want kids, and I'm fine with that. And I'll be honest with you, based off what I've heard from different people, and now some people love having kids, some people don't. And they say, "Oh, I love my kids, but oh man, I wish I didn't have kids." And I don't mind not having kids. Yeah. So it was never something I really, really was interested in. What else do you do in your spare time other than share investing or hiking? Running, I suppose. Running, I do. So let me have a look. So this is my typical day. So I get up, take the dogs for a walk, go for a run. So that's like maybe 2-3 hours. And then I'll come back to the computer. This is on a day where the market is open. I'll have a look at some announcements. If I watch TV or movies, it's never in the evening. It's in the middle of the day, which I don't know if that's weird or not. And I don't want to be outside in the middle of the day because, by the way, I did have a little bit of skin cancer. Yep, I got it caught pretty quickly on my arm here. And that's one of the reasons why I don't want to be in the sun in the middle of the day. I do have a little bit darker skin, so it is hard for me to get sunburn. I think that's because of my mother's side of the family. They're sort of more of the Middle Eastern persuasion. We're talking about Syria, Malta, Egypt, Spain, that sort of thing. I suppose Spain is not Middle East, but there is a bit of Spanish history there somewhere. But definitely Syria, Malta, that sort of side. So maybe that's why I don't. I have difficulty getting sunburned, but I do prefer not to be outside in the middle of the day, just because it's wise in Australia. So I prefer to be indoors, and I do like watching TV shows. I used to like watching movies. I watch much less movies now. I watch TV shows. So I might watch a few episodes of a show during the middle of the day, but then I become bored with that. I might play a few games. When I say games, I'm not talking about video games. I might be talking about a few games on my phone that take like 3 minutes to finish. That's my attention span when it comes to games. I don't like games, like video games, that sort of thing. I might do a bit of reading. I might watch some YouTube videos, depending on what mood I'm in. I'm doing all these. I might do a little bit of research, not research, because I'm being a little bit more curious these days. I might look at some interesting topics I've discovered. For instance, what's something I was looking at the other day? Just things I can't remember now. Oh, curiosity. I'm looking into curiosity, like the history of curiosity killed the cat. I was just looking at that, which is really interesting because it didn't start off as curiosity killed the cat. It started off as care killed the cat, and this was back in the Shakespeare times. In fact, in Much Ado About Nothing, there was care killed the cat, and then something about metal brought it back or something like that. So it was all about care was in those days about worry or stress. So the saying back there was, don't have too much worry or stress, otherwise it'll kill you. And well, that's great. So now it's about curiosity, but I think curiosity killed the cat is more about prying eyes, that sort of thing. Anyway, so I went in a deep rabbit hole when it comes to that. And that is sometimes what happens, like Byford Dolphin. And I also am getting more interested in documentaries. I watched a documentary the other day called Gone Girls about the Long Island serial killer. This was really interesting. It's on Netflix. And it was also, I didn't know much about this. I knew a little bit about what happened, but not a lot. But it was also really interesting about the corruption in that area, Suffolk County, and it was just an interesting story about how long this guy got away with it. And in fact, there was a good description about this serial killer about 13 or 14 years before he was caught. But I think the reason why they didn't take the description of the serial killer, it was a perfect description, by the way, and that's the whole reason they caught him was because of this description. In 2010, or maybe it was 2010, they caught him in 2022, so 12 years. I think the reason why they didn't take the description seriously was because they were heroin addicts or something like that. Anyway, so it was a good documentary, and I don't usually binge watch, but documentaries like this, which was only 3 episodes long, I will binge watch. Also, want to watch a documentary on Oklahoma City bombing because that is the 30-year anniversary. Yeah, Oklahoma City bombing. That was interesting as well because I didn't know much about it. Anyway, so those are some things I do. So I'll be honest with you, I'm never bored. I'm always got something else I could do. Never bored. What else? Yeah, anyhow, that's all I can do. That's all I'm going to say. We can move on to the next question. Trader Hooper, do you have any interesting observations about the US versus Australian education systems? Were there any differences or other interesting facts experienced regarding one or the other? Okay, I do have an interesting, I would say, not much. Once you get to the graduate level, a lot of the other students are all from all around the world. Yep, all around the world. So at that point, there's going to be not much difference. So you're getting all the smart people from all around the world when you go to graduate school. So one of the interesting things when I started undergraduate classes at the SUNY Brockport was how the first week of classes in chemistry and physics was teaching the kids or the students how to use a metric system. That was weird, how to go from their empirical system to the metric system. And I did, because I knew nothing about their system, so this actually did teach me, and this reinforced how stupid their system is when it comes to measurements. When it comes to weight, distance, the empirical system is just absolutely bonkers. So that reinforced how stupid their system is. The very fact, because in science, everything is metric. Everything is metric. In fact, some of the few problems we've seen, like in NASA, there was a few problems because of some, translations or conversions from their system to the metric. There's been some misconversions, which has caused some problems. I don't know. In science, everything is metric. Mostly everything is metric. When it comes to like temperature, so there's balloons that are released in the atmosphere to measure temperature, dew point, winds as it rises, which is very vital for weather models. And it's really interesting. At the surface, temperature is measured in Fahrenheit there, but once you go just above the surface, everything is measured in Celsius because that's the normal measure or normal measurement of temperature in Celsius. Anyway, so that was the one interesting thing was that first few weeks where I had to go through how to convert everything from metric into pounds and inches and feet and all these stupid measurements that they should have got rid of years ago. So that was one interesting thing. So there's a lot of people who believe that maybe Americans are stupid. Not true. A lot of very smart people in America. So a lot of my colleagues, even in undergraduate school, I would consider very smart, very intelligent. Particularly once you go to graduate school, everyone is intelligent. So the only difference was that first few weeks where we had to convert, who they had to teach how all the students how to convert from the way they measure stuff into metric. Anyway, so that's probably the only thing. The main thing. Other than that, I'd say there was not much different, which is probably the reason why you'd get students going from universities anywhere in the world to there and vice versa. There shouldn't be that much difference. Paul and Mayo says, I look pretty young. How old are you? And are you planning to retire early? How young do I look? I think most people would be surprised. I'm 50 years old. Do I look 50 years old? I have no idea. I've never thought of myself as looking young or old. I'm just 50. I feel fine, except my body's starting to tell me maybe you're getting old. Are you planning to retire early? Here's the interesting thing. If I remain being part-time, I could consider going on for a long time. If I was full-time, I reckon I'd have to retire early. I would want to retire early, but I don't think I have to. I wouldn't mind retiring and just relying on other income. That would be good, but I'm not hell-bent on doing that. So no plans to retire early. And but the good thing is my super should be pretty high once I get to 60, 65. In fact, my super, by the time I can retire, I think it's 65. Is it 65? What age can I retire? What age can I retire in Australia? Because I keep raising it. Must be at least 67. I don't know. I'm quite a few years away from that. Now, a lot of my colleagues over the last 15 years have retired at 55 because there was that defined benefit scheme where they could retire at 55 and get really good benefits. They got rid of that. Of course, they did. So that would be like 5 years away from me. Anyway, so am I a little bit pissed off with that? Peeved off? Absolutely, I am. It seems like in the past, a lot of people were given these benefits and then they realize, oh, this can't happen for the future generation, so we're going to get rid of it. So 67. So if, based off the super I have now, over the next 17 years, I should be able to quadruple my super without any doubt. And the good thing about being part-time is they don't reduce your super. Now, my super won't rise, but it's not reduced. So that's one thing I did not realize, that your super cannot reduce. So even though I get this weekly or fortnightly pay, you have to add on to your super onto that. So my pay right now is not much. Well, it is a bit different from my full-time pay, but it's not that big of a decrease. So my super is going up. I think it's $1,000 every fortnight. So it's going up $1,000 every fortnight. So just think about that over a 17-year period. So $1,000 every fortnight. So we're talking about $26,000 a year over. So we're talking about not quite $500,000 extra. So we're talking about my super going up to, and if you double it every so often, my super should be, I reckon my super should be about $2 to $3 million by the time I get to 67. And by that point, that should be enough, even taking into account inflation, that sort of thing. So, and then on top of that, I've got my other investments as well. So I'm going to be fine when I retire, no matter when. Well, not in the next 5 years. I do want to work at least for the next 5 years, How much money do you need? How much money do you need to retire? How much money needed to retire? Let's have a look. So it says here 595,000. I don't know how true that is. I'm not far off that already. Anyway, so can I retire at 60 with 500,000 in Australia? So it's 1.5 million. Yeah, that's easily enough. Yeah, anyway. I'm not thinking about retirement just yet. Unless I get a massive financial windfall from some sort of supporter out there. You can donate to my page through Ko-Fi. I'll try to remember to leave a link in this particular video. So if you're a massive billionaire and you'd like to leave someone some of your money, feel free to leave me a few $1 million. And yeah. Stu Percy says, do you have a group of friends you hang out with? No, I do not. So I am, this is something my mother doesn't understand. I don't need friends. Some people say, oh, you always need this social circle. I don't need social circle. I do have friends I'd consider friends, but these are people are not people I hang out with on a daily basis or even a weekly basis. And yes, I don't need people. I just don't need people. I know some people find that really hard to understand. I just don't need people. I would consider myself an ultra introvert when it comes to that. I do lose a lot of energy hanging out with people. I find it draining, and I'm much more comfortable being by myself. That's just the way it is. And yeah, I just don't need people. And I don't need friends. I just don't need it. Maybe that will change when I get older, but yeah. And my mother just does not understand that. And yes, so I forgot to leave my link about donate in the previous video, so I'll try to remember in this video. Stu Percy, I think there will be life planet. I think there would be a planet with life. The universe is so old that the planet may be dead now because their sun has died. Here is some education. Okay, so our sun is a second generation sun. I'm pretty sure it's a second generation sun or second generation star. I'm pretty sure it is. Is the sun second generation? Sun has been, oh, it's not. Oh, third generation sun, sorry. Formation involved heavy elements produced by previous generations of stars that exploded as supernova. Now, here we go, population 3, population 2, population 1. So this is stuff I don't know. Sun has found to be comparatively mineral rich, meaning that it is at least a second generation star. Yes, so the whole way to get like gold and iron or all those sort of metals is from a first generation sun, maybe a second generation sun. So that means because we have a lot of that here, then it had to be another star, and that exploded and created all this stuff. So the way to consider the way to think about stars is they are element generation machines. They generate a lot of elements, particularly those bigger elements, when they die. So the universe is old, and yeah, so sometimes stars will die, explode, become black holes, that sort of thing, or become neutron stars. And there would be a lot of planets that may have had life and their original sun has died, and maybe they're moving. Those civilizations are moving. So anyway. Agent 8627, hi Kneppy, I want to know everything about your dogs. Where did you get them? Where do they sleep? Food, toys, training, and favorites. A lot can be learned about people from their pets and the way they treat them. So my dogs, the only reason I got some dogs is so they can work in the mines and get a lot of coal, a lot of gold, because you don't have to pay them. That's a perfect slave. You don't have to pay them any money. So I do generate a lot of income from them working the mines. No, I am joking. Of course I am joking. But there will be some people like Trump who would love to see kids working back in the mines. I'm joking about that as well. I want to know everything about your dogs. Okay, so my ex-partner wanted dogs. And I was like, yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, I don't mind having dogs. If you want cats, we could have cats. When I grew up, I had a cat. When I was really young, we had a dog. Name was Toby. Our cat was Misty. Lilac Point. Siamese Lilac Point. Beautiful cat. I never had a massive urging to get a dog, but my partner wanted a dog. Particularly, she wanted Labradors. Labrador dogs, which no complaints about that. Anyway, so she wanted Labrador dogs. So she did find a breeder, a good breeder, up in the Glasshouse Mountains. So eventually we decided to get a dog. In fact, the first Labrador, the breeder's very first chocolate Labrador, name is Milo. Now, the reason the name is Milo isn't because Milo looks like a chocolate Labrador or chocolate looks like Milo, is because his mother is Milo, and Milo is the coffee, not the wine. So the mother was named after a coffee. So yeah, why not Milo? It's a very good name as well for a dog. And great dog. And then we decided that to get another dog, Nala, from the same breeder, which is a yellow lab, not a blonde lab. So there's only really three types of labs. So there's chocolate, yellow, and black. Yeah, black. I didn't know anything about the history of Labradors, but I know everything about Labradors right now. So, for instance, they were, of course, created or bred first in the Labrador area of Canada. And one of the interesting things about Labradors is not one family owned them. They used to belong to many different families, which means their loyalty was easily transferable, which made me sort of sad. Because one of the reasons why they're very good, not guard dogs, like help dogs, guide dogs, is because typically what you do is have a family raising the puppy, teaching them how to be a guide dog, and then they give them to the blind person. And it really is helpful that their loyalty is transferable. So that makes me sad. That means if I died, they would just find a new owner and be happy. They would not mourn my death. And I don't believe that because both my dogs or our dogs are really attached to me, really attached. So that gets to the next thing. Where do they sleep? They sleep wherever they want to. They have full range of the house. Typically, they end up on my bed. Both of them end up on my bed. I'm fine with that. So Milo, which is a chocolate lab, he's less attached. So he's more independent. Nala, she's a little bit more attached. So she will follow me around a fair bit. So they can sleep wherever they want. I'm not a big proponent of keeping dogs outside. And the main reason behind that is my friend had a dog and he kept it outside and it was cruel. It was cruel. This dog was always whining. And the whole reason behind that is because dogs are much more sociable than you might think. And they want to be around you. Cats, I do believe cats should be kept indoors just because they're brilliant killers, but they would just kill everything. So it's very helpful for the nature, for the environment, for native animals, for cats to be kept indoors. But I do think dogs, they should be kept indoors. I just understand why people just keep their dogs outside. What's the point? What is the point? Unless they're working dogs. Anyway, so they can sleep anywhere they want. Food, toys, training, and favorite. They have a lot of toys. We used to get our food from the breeder. They had this dry food, but they stopped making it. And now we get White Hawk, I think. Now that's kibble. They also get prepared meals. So a lot of raw food, like raw meats. We used to give them fish heads. We haven't given them a fish head for a while. They love fish, particularly Milo loves fish. Nala, particularly the whole fishes, she's not so sure. I'm going to say something a little bit cruel here. Milo is smarter than Nala. He's much smarter. So we took them both to puppy training and Milo caught on just like that. Even the trainer, I heard him saying, eavesdropping, saying how Milo was really smart. He was catching on just like that. Nala, not quite so. We can teach Milo a trick just like that. We can actually teach him to collect all the toys and put them back into where the toys are kept. Of course, toys are taken out by the dogs. It's called collect. We just say collect, and he will pick up toys and take them and put them back into where they belong. Nala can't do that. Anyway, so food, toys, a lot of foods, training. So he took them to puppy training. Both of them, they are trained, really good walking. We don't do as much training with them now. And favourites. Not sure what favourites mean. A lot can be learned about people from their pets and the way they treat them. I will give you a really good story here. So in 2016, it was raining very heavily. So I was taking Milo out for a run. In the rain, there was no one in the roads. It was really heavily raining. We got to this little overpass. So, and the overpass was slightly flooded. When I say slightly flooded, the water going over this overpass, this was over Kedron Brook, was about that deep. It wasn't very deep at all. So I could actually see the top of the bridge, and so I had no problems. So we're going over it. We got to the other side, and then I saw this ball coming down the creek, and I went, "Oh, I'm going to get this ball." But what was weird is the edge of this bridge wasn't straight. There was a big sort of I don't know what you call it, gap in the bridge, massive gap in the bridge, and I couldn't see it. And Milo came over, and I think he knew what I was wanting to do, get the ball, and he fell into this gap. His paws fell into the gap. He fell in, went under the bridge, completely under the bridge because, anyway, and he came up the other side. He was flailing, and I just jumped in, and I got him, took him to the side, and I did not have to think about it. Did not have to think about jumping in to this swollen creek to get Milo. And this did change my perspective on many things. So we have heard people, lifesavers say, if you have a kid, drowning, parents don't go in after him. Let the lifesavers go. No. That does not work, that sort of thought, that sort of thinking. If you're a parent and you see your kid drowning, you are going to go after him no matter what. So I did hear this quite a few times because we have seen like children drowning and then the parents drown or something like that. But I think if a child drowns and the parent doesn't do anything to save him, the guilt would be unbearable because, and I don't think you think about this. At this point, I just did not even think about it. I just saw this dog, my dog, struggling, and I just went in there. I'm a powerful swimmer. I had no problems. I told this story, and a few people at work got upset. You should not have done that. How dare you do that? And I said to him some unkind words in response. Anyway, so it came out well in the end. And the unfortunate thing, he has a little bit of a fear of water. Not a big fear because he's a Labrador, but he won't go into deep. And I have taken him to the beach, and he does get really protective of me if I'm going into bigger waves. He will get upset. He will come to me, don't, and barking, get out, this is dangerous, that sort of thing. So that sort of experience did affect him in a negative way. Anyway, so that's my story about Milo, and I'll do it again. I'll do that again. Anyway. Gurpreet Singh, hi Kneppy, I like a philosophy about life. Want to know who is your favourite philosopher or who influenced you the most? I don't have a favourite philosopher. And no influences. That's pretty easy. I have no favourite philosopher. It's sort of like when it comes to music, I have no absolute favourite band. There are some songs I absolutely love from bands, some albums I love from bands. Like I like Radiohead, like Led Zeppelin. There's some like Metallica. I love some Metallica songs, not some of their other songs. What else? I like even TV shows. There's some episodes that are absolutely amazing, but some episodes, not so much. So I'd say I don't have a favourite philosopher. I would say that Henry David Thoreau, not sure he would be considered a philosopher, but I like what he did when it comes to Walden. Would Henry David Thoreau be considered a philosopher? He's a naturalist. There you go, a naturalist. Oh, he does have philosophy here. A leading transcendentalist, whatever that is. Transcendentalist. Let's see, have a look what the definition of transcendentalist is. Philosophical and spiritual movement that emerged in the 1820s and 1830s, emphasized intuition, the individual relationship to nature and the divine, self-reliance and non-conformity. I do like that. Maybe I'm a transcendentalist. Intuition, yep. Individual's relationship with nature. I love that. I think we should be more in tune with nature. We have instances of native cultures being so in tune with nature. In the divine world, I'm not sure about the divine, but I think nature in itself can be said a divine. Self-reliance, yeah, I'm not so sure about self-reliance, but he did go into the Massachusetts wild to be self-reliant. And non-conformity, I do like that. Do like non-conformity. So maybe, without even thinking about it, maybe that's sort of my favourite philosopher, but I don't really have one, and no one really influences me. I'm going to say this right now. I don't, in anything, I have no influences. And I suppose, I think every, like, what's the good, like in meteorology, I have no influences. At times, I have these maybe these more experienced meteorologists who would say something. I go, "Oh, that's good," but I then don't fixate on this person and say, "Oh, you have influenced me the most." What else? Like investing wise, I have no one. Like I'm not influenced by Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio or who else is there? Livermore or any sort of trader. I am not influenced. I think they all have something important to say, but I'm not going to focus on the one investor and say, I'm going to focus my investing, or my investing philosophy is going to be sort of like this particular investor, sort of like a Phil Town, who I'm pretty sure he has a shrine to Warren Buffett and he believes that's the only way to invest. So I'm not like that. I think you can pigeonhole yourself and doing yourself in service or a disservice if you just focus on one person when it comes to one field. So I'm going to say that there's no one has influenced me at all, except parents. Except parents. Yeah, there you go. Eric Thelian, being the young age of 59, my question for Friday Q&A, your age, just to think of retirement in the future. We are not alone in the universe. I'm sure even Egyptian culture must question, let alone Area 51 and aliens. I can almost say with almost 100% confidence we are not alone in the universe. If we are alone in the universe, what a waste of space. What an absolute waste, although there is a lot of space out there. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure we're not alone. I would not be surprised if we are being studied by advanced civilizations. And I know there's all these things about why haven't they come to us yet? Why don't we know about these advanced civilizations? And I think there's a definite possibility they are studying us right now. Why would they want to show themselves to us yet? And study us first. See what we're like. See if we have potential, that sort of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if we are being studied. Who knows? That's what I would do. If we found civilization that was probably less advanced than us, and would we show ourselves to them? Probably not. I'll tell you, we probably wouldn't do that. I know history tells us something different, but that's within this world, and I think we have changed. Humanity has changed, and I think we're more likely to study before we even show ourselves. But that's a long way in the future. And I do believe there's some really weird. I'm shocked that all this alien stuff, this alien aircraft stuff a few years ago, is not a bigger thing. We have these pilots, well-respected pilots, saying weird things have been happening. They've been happening all the time, yet it caused a little bit of ripple in the media, but that's about it. Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't really been thinking about retirement. Maybe I should start thinking about retirement, even though I probably think it's a little bit further out. Trent Howard, what's your view on coffee, chocolate, and alcohol? Well, there you go. I don't drink coffee at all. I've had 2 cups of coffee in my life. The worst drinks I've ever had. I don't understand why people like coffee. Well, yeah, I don't like the smell of coffee. I'm not trying to be intolerant. I don't understand why people like fish. I hate fish. But I sort of do understand. Like, we all have different likes, different tastes, that sort of thing. So there's probably a lot of food I like that other people don't like ice cream, which I think is strange. If you don't like ice cream, you're a weirdo. You're an absolute weirdo. Anyway, so I don't drink coffee at all. I don't even want to drink coffee. I don't like the taste of coffee. Now, I do like hot chocolate, and I love chocolate. I didn't used to like dark chocolate, but I'm starting to like dark chocolate way more, particularly if you put a little bit of salt or like salted caramel in dark chocolate. Absolutely amazing. You get these different, dark chocolate and a little bit of salt goes really well together. Anyway, chocolate, love chocolate, alcohol. Alcohol is one of those things that is really harmful, but you can't ban it. We've gone through that. Well, we haven't. Americans gone through that. I don't like nannying of the people, and you can never ban alcohol, but it does really bad things to people. But this is true about everything. It's even true about water. You can drink too much water and die. So everything should be done in moderation. So alcohol should be done in moderation. The unfortunate thing is a lot of people do abuse alcohol. Probably a lot of people abuse coffee, even chocolate, and you do get negative effects if you abuse something, if you don't use it in moderation. So alcohol itself, I don't understand, just like coffee, I don't understand why people can drink beer. Beer for me is just awful tasting. And funny enough, I do have some whiskey I do have some whiskey downstairs, and I haven't taken a sip of whiskey, so I will have a little bit of whiskey every now and then, but I haven't had a drop of whiskey for about 6 months. In fact, that means I haven't had alcohol for 6 months. I've had people say to me, the best thing after a hard day's work is a beer. And I was thinking, why? Beer is dehydrating. What's the word for that? Beer is dehydrating. Beer makes you more dehydrated. So it's like the worst thing you can have. Or beer dehydration myth. Significant dehydration. Does alcohol dehydrate you? So maybe that's wrong. Does beer dehydrate you? Oh, here's one. Post-exercise rehydration, effect of consumption of beer. That would be good. That is actually peer-reviewed article, it looks like. Anyway, so yeah, I don't understand how. Yeah, and for me, beer is just weird. People have said to me that coffee and beer is just like acquired taste, but why? Anyway, so I'm not a big fan of alcohol, but I will have the drop of whiskey on occasion. That's it. We've come to the end. Geez, that was a long. I'm going to have a look to see if there's any other. That's it. Oh, Trent Howard also mentioned, how's your income from YouTube change with your daily videos? Oh, yes. Okay, this is actually a good one. How has your income from YouTube changed with your daily videos? So the ASX Daily Rundown video, what I've been doing every day has been, I get way more views with these daily videos, the ASX Daily Rundown videos. Yeah, I do like doing these videos because I can just do it on a spare moment. No planning or very little planning. I could just do it. Top 5 stocks, just figure out the top 5 stocks. So minute amount of planning, and I do get a lot of views. So a lot of the planned videos, sometimes I get very small views. So those are those sound videos. Reaction videos starting to get a lot of views, so maybe I should do more of those. So yeah, my income actually has increased significantly because of these ASX Daily Rundown videos, and I don't mind that because I like doing. Okay, that's it. This video has been long. If you have any more questions, leave those in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I'm not a financial advisor. If you need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who's qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.